right, let's bring in retired four-star General Jack Keane, a Fox News senior strategic analyst. General Keane, great to have you back on the program here. So what do you see happening next?
Well, I think what we're really going to happen, we'll get past this ceasefire violation, I do believe. But I think for our audience to clearly understand, the ceasefire violations began right away when the peace agreement between Hezbollah and Israel took place over Lebanon on April the 17th. Over 2,000 drone and rocket attacks into northern Israel, forcing the evacuation of those towns and villages. And those people have been gone all that time. Kids are not going to school. Israel can't stand for that. That's a violation of their sovereignty. Remember, the objective that Iran and its proxies have with Israel is to destroy the state of Israel. And what they mean by that, they know they can't defeat Israel IDF military capability, but what they want to achieve is make the security situation so volatile that that small tribe of people, 7 million Jews, no longer want to raise their children and their grandchildren there because of the security threat. So what has happened in northern Israel with the evacuation of their homes, with the evacuation of their schools, evacuation of their workplaces, is certainly a step in that direction. And that's why you get this zeal coming from Israel, because there's a threat to their very existence. The major lesson learned out of October the 7th for the Israelis, and this they will admit was a mistake that they made, just as we made mistakes leading to 9/11. Their mistake was they can no longer permit proxies on their borders to build capability to attack them. And they let Hamas do it, and that led to 1,200 people being killed, 255 hostages, and we know the story very well. On the very next day, Hezbollah attacked them. So what they're trying to prevent right now, during the ceasefire violation that Hezbollah is causing, is make certain that that capability does not remain in southern Lebanon from which to attack them. Yeah. And Israel cannot avoid that. They have to take this on. And I think the administration recognizes that. I would like to see them even publicly recognize the green light that Israel needs to have to be able to deal with this threat.
Although we saw J.D. Vance at the podium yesterday in the White House briefing room chastising Israel to say, hey, you're complaining about Donald Trump. You know, he's the greatest friend that Israel has. Just want to point out that we're looking at the White House as well, General, because the president is going to be departing soon for a local trip. He's also going to Camp David this weekend. But can you disabuse us of any notion that we might have, based on 47 years of history, that Iran is looking for any excuse to either delay or derail this process?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Listen, 7 presidents before this president have all tried to accommodate Iran and to try to work with them as, quote, a normal country. Even Ronald Reagan, after they blew up the U.S. Embassy in Lebanon and in Kuwait and the Marine barracks, he was still trying to work a deal with them to get hostages out, which nearly brought down his administration. By the end of his administration, he recognized there's no dealing with them because they tried to shut down the Straits of Hormuz. And he took down what existed of their navy and their oil platforms. But everyone has tried this approach with Iran, and it has not worked. Both intelligence services, Mossad and CIA, also have reservations about them ever agreeing to a deal here. So, yes, are we going to try? Yes. We're in a major phase here of diplomacy. But I think we have to be clear-eyed about what is really happening here and recognize the leverage that Iran really believes they have. When they shut down the Straits of Hormuz, they believe they gained a geopolitical advantage, and they're going to continue to use it. Anything that happens here that doesn't go their way, they're going to say the Straits is closed down. That's where they're coming from. They believe they have some leverage here, and the facts do speak for themselves. I mean, we made a major decision to shift from military objectives to a priority for economic and also political objectives. And the advisors to the president landed the idea that given the oil prices and gas prices by the closure of the Straits of Hormuz, coupled with the ability of Iran to retaliate against oil and gas infrastructure in the region militarily, that would lead to a world depression. And that put us in a major diplomatic phase that we're in right now. And the reality is we got to see this phase through. My own gut feeling for this is it's likely not to get a deal. We would all like to see a deal meeting all of the president's maximalist objectives. We're going to try to do that, certainly, and I think we're earnest about it. I think some of the negotiators, because they're dealing with the people on the other side, believe that they really want to do this, and they may be willing to change their behavior. Most of us have been looking at this for most of my adult life, have a different view of that. We don't think they're going to change their behavior. The reality is they're operating in their own national interest based on their own ideology here, and that's the reality of what we're dealing with. But this one thing I do know is President Trump is the first president to confront this regime, and he did it very powerfully in Midnight Hammer operation and obviously in full military operations here as well. But we're in a diplomatic phase. If this diplomatic phase doesn't work out, President Trump has 2 years left of his presidency. I guarantee you he is not going to turn over an Iranian mess to his successor, which was handed to him by President Biden. He will not do that. He will clean this up, and if that means full military operations to bring these guys down once and for all, that is what he will do. We're not in that phase, but we're in a diplomatic phase, and let's see what happens here in this phase.
Yeah, and we could hear something from President Trump momentarily as we do look live at the South Portico there, where he is about to head out to JBA en route to Camp David. So we'll be listening if he makes any remarks on his departure. General Jack Keane, always appreciate your time, sir. Thank you very much.
Thanks, General.
Yeah, great talking to both of you. Thank you.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.